welcome to Schoenberg's Perennials. I am so excited for today.
I'm very excited too.
I'm really excited. Today we are talking about Sarah Brand.
She's an icon.
She is currently blowing up all over the internet. People are saying stuff like she's the new Rebecca Black. And I want to talk about why I disagree with that, but I also want to talk about why I love her so much. If you have not yet heard of her new single, Red Dress, I highly recommend going and listening to it. To me, it's an absolute delight. But it's becoming a really interesting talking point on the internet because people are sort of torn between whether she is intentionally bad or if she doesn't know how bad she is. And I actually don't think it's either thing.
I think you should quantify the word bad. You mean out of tune?
Yeah, but when I say bad, I'm saying that because that's what people are just saying, because most of the criticism that I'm seeing is coming from people who clearly aren't singers. So that's the only language that they know how to use is she sucks and she shouldn't sing. I want to talk about why I hate that and why I love her. Sarah Brand falls into the category of artists for me like Florence Foster Jenkins and Tommy Wiseau. They're the people who decided to go ahead with their artistic dream no matter what people said to them about how they sounded or what the quality of their work were. They just wanted to do it and they made it happen, and I have massive respect for that. So, I'm not here to heckle today. I super respect her, and I actually think that these kinds of people, the Florence Foster Jenkins of the world, are really inspiring, especially for me as an artist. I usually go in the opposite direction where I have a lot of imposter syndrome, and I often feel like nothing I ever do is good enough, which means that I often don't release a lot of my own work. And I'm very inspired by the people who just go, fuck it, I want to do this, and they just make it happen.
Yeah, it's like, that's very difficult to do in a lot of cases.
It is, and I mean, that's a big point I want to bring up too. It's just like, if you've never actually written a song, recorded a song, attempted to make a music video, all these things, you have no idea how much work goes into that. Even if the outcome is something that isn't what you intended or isn't something that people respond to, there is so much work that goes into that.
I mean, a lot of the times also when it is something that you didn't want, it probably took a lot. Like, you probably, for me anyway, if I release something that I don't really like, it's because I couldn't fix it, and I spent like, a lot longer trying to fix it. Whereas something that I like probably came out in 10 seconds.
Yeah. But even just the logistics of it, like, just getting people together, like just getting into studio, hiring a sound engineer, hiring someone to mix and master if that's what you need, hiring musicians or asking friends if you don't have the funds, putting together a music video, like hiring equipment, getting people to film it, someone to direct it, costumes, extras. Like, there's a huge amount of work that goes into this. So whether you like what Sarah Brand sounds like or not, she put a lot of work into this, and I do respect that. I also love the way that she's handling her hecklers, because there's a lot of people right now that are coming across, frankly, very rude towards her. And basically speaking to her like, well, do you realize that you suck? And the way that she handles that is just, I think she's a class act. And I think that she's also hilarious. Because from the interviews that I have heard with her so far, it sounds like every time somebody says something like that to her, they ask her, like, do you know how much you suck? And her answer is always, oh, it's really interesting the way that people are responding. It's a really cool sociological experiment. Like, people don't expect to hear that, and I love that, because she's not giving them what they want at all. She's sticking to her guns, and she's really going the Tommy Wiseau route with it. Tommy Wiseau of The Room, of course, where, like, just rolling with it and being like, oh yeah, I meant it to be a comedy, right? And I love that. What was your initial reaction to her because you're the one who actually discovered this and you brought it to me?
Well, yeah. I couldn't tell. Well, at first, I wasn't sure whether or not it was a parody.
Yeah.
And then I thought maybe the person who, like, produced, because the rest of the track is produced pretty well. So I wondered whether or not the person who produced it tuned her vocals to the wrong key, or is tone deaf and
That would
didn't.
be
And
so much work, though. Because it's inconsistently out of tune. It's not like
yeah,
it's pitched
yeah,
up a half a... oh, that would be a huge undertaking.
yeah. I do kind of wonder how. I wonder whether or not like he wasn't allowed to tune it, or there wasn't enough time to tune it. I'm curious why it wasn't tuned
Mm-hmm.
or fixed
Mm-hmm.
somewhat more than it is in its current state.
Yeah. Yep, that's definitely one of the big questions that we're going to tackle today. I'm going to leave that side of the expertise up to you. I'm going to give you my perspective as a vocal teacher on what I think is going on vocally with her and why I don't think that she's intentionally singing out of key. But I want to address all off top as well the perception that she is the new Rebecca Black. I actually think that that's a misinterpretation because Rebecca Black spent the kind of money to hire people who did fix her voice, right? The production on that is very different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand the comparison either, because aside from how cringy Rebecca Black's Friday song is, it's not out of tune, and it's not
No, and I would guess
technically wrong.
my assumption with Rebecca Black is she probably can't sing live. I don't know, but my perception is that she had people who could fix all of the flaws because it sounds very produced.
I don't know. You can listen to the Rebecca Black song and not know that it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this one, it's very difficult to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say almost impossible. Like the only person who probably couldn't do that would be somebody who's like really involved with this and doesn't notice, or I don't know. Like whose ears would not be able to detect this?
I guess somebody who is truly tone deaf, which is actually much rarer than we think it is. Apparently, that's the big thing that people keep saying, and I think it's mostly people who don't know what the hell they're talking about is just saying, well, she's tone deaf and she shouldn't sing at all. And it's like, well, okay, first of all, being tone deaf is actually pretty rare. Most people who have trouble with tuning, it's coming from either like they need to work on their tuning, which you can, or it's a support issue, which we're going to get into. I also think part of it too is just there's a big bias. People who don't do these things, I've noticed over time, often perceive singers, actors, and visual artists just like either have talent or they don't. So it's like you either burst out of your mom's vagina and you're able to sing, or you can't sing at all. And it's funny because people don't have that same perception with instruments. Like, I think most people are aware of the fact that if you want to become a good piano player or a guitar player, you practice every day. But I often encounter people who are legitimately baffled when I say, as a singer, I practice every day. They're like, what? Why? Because people genuinely think that you either can sing and you have talent, or you can't sing and you can't build on that. And I know for a fact that that's not true. For me, like, yes, you can be born with some degree of natural talent, but that doesn't really mean shit. Like, the main thing comes from hard work and practice.
Yeah.
So just this idea that, like, she sounds bad to our ears or out of tune now, and people are saying, you should never sing. It's like, no. Like, if we want to go down the route of saying that what she's doing is not good, I would say she should get some voice lessons, but I wouldn't go any farther than that.
Yeah, definitely. It seems to me that the perception of, especially like shows like Britain's Got Talent, they present singers as like, young people who just really wanted to do it and then they did it and then it's done.
Yeah.
There's no, or the reason that they're singing is because of some past trauma that happened or some like circumstance or something else that's external, rather than there's never an emphasis on, wow, they're so technically proficient. Whereas piano players, guitar players, everyone gets like, wow, what a technically proficient, or like, wow, he's amazing. He's so fast. He's quick. He can play the fastest. Who can sing the fastest? Is that a question? Has ever been asked?
I mean, people get really impressed with runs, like, like people are really into that kind of stuff, but I still think people think it's just a talent thing with voice, which honestly is not the case. Like, I've been a singer now for about 15 years. I've been practicing it pretty intensively for that long. I wouldn't be the singer I am today if I hadn't been practicing, taking lessons, and working on my ear training and musicianship.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So before we get into some of the reasons that I think that the reasons why she sounds the way she is and why I love her and whatnot, I just want to read a little bit from her self-written bio, which is something I found on her Spotify page, which is, quote, I am a singer-songwriter and director from Malibu, California. I write primarily pop music infused with sociological introspection, spanning topics such as religious hypocrisy, inequality, and romance. I write all my music, as well as direct and edit music videos. I am currently living abroad in England for a Master of Science in Sociology at the University of Oxford. Just talking about that a little bit. My music journey began when my poetry began coming to me with accompanying melodies. Then I began to dream every night of playing the guitar. On my birthday, I got a guitar and I proceeded to teach myself both guitar and piano. My mission is to write socially conscious music to promote compassion and introspection through different perspectives in musical and visual content. So it's kind of cute, really, because like in a lot of ways, especially instrumentally, she's an amateur, but she just, like, from her bio, I get the perception that she wants to do it for fun and for a dream because she loves it. And I want to encourage that in anyone, like, as a singer, as a teacher, that's right up my alley of it, like, enabling people to do what they want. And, like, you know, you start from square one. We all start from somewhere, right?
Yeah, I agree. Starting from zero.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, you have to. Every one of us starts from somewhere humble. So, basically, people are saying a lot of stuff about how she's either intentionally singing out of tune in order to make some kind of statement or to get attention, or she just straight up sucks and should stop singing forever. So, here's why I don't think she's doing it on purpose from a voice teacher point of view. This is what I would diagnose. If she was to walk into my teaching studio and I was to listen to her, these are the things that I would say. And I say that because I've actually had a lot of students who sound just like her, have the same kind of vocal inflections as she does. I'm super familiar with this, and I have worked with students like that to the point where they can sing in tune, supporting their voice, sounding great with confidence. I know how to fix this stuff. I'm not saying it can always be fixed, but everything she's doing is very common. It's all the stuff that most people have insecurities about. Like, this is why most people only sing in the shower, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't sing at my house right now.
No, you live with singers.
Only one. Well, two, I guess. Three. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just when you're singing about farts, it's never like a thing you want to broadcast.
Right, Happy Kid Toy Band.
Yeah.
Plug. Okay, so here's why I don't think that she's doing it on purpose, for one thing. When you listen through her whole track, one of the things you're going to hear is that she goes sharp in more energetic vocal sections, like if it's louder or going higher. So to me, that sounds like over support. When you're pushing too much air through your vocal cords, you're likely to go sharp. She goes more often than not, she's going flat in the quieter and less vocally energetic sections, which I would diagnose as under support, which means you're not supporting your voice with your low abs, you're just singing from like your vocal cords up, and that's it. This is also accompanied in her voice by pretty inconsistent vibrato. You can hear how it's kind of like fluttery, sort of. It's a really common thing for beginner singers. That is connected to support as well. So vibrato is a really weird thing to teach to vocalists, because if you play an instrument, it's a physical thing that you're learning how to actually manipulate with your hand, right? With voice, you can't or shouldn't do that. The goal with vibrato with a voice is that if you have your support in place and you're singing without tension in your body, like in your solar plexus or in your jaw or in your tongue, then it'll be a symptom of a healthy singing that you will have a consistent, even vibrato. Everyone's vibrato is unique, like a fingerprint. So your vibrato will have a specific rhythm to it, but that rhythm should be consistent. But that comes from learning how to support. So when I hear something that's inconsistent in the tuning and in the vibrato, my first diagnosis is, okay, so this is probably a support issue more than a tone deaf issue, actually.
Interesting. I was curious about how she was able to sing sharp. I always sing flat.
Mm.
So it was interesting to hear someone consistently sing very sharp
Mm-hmm.
all the time, and it was weird.
Yeah.
For me.
So I'm actually more on team sharp. If I tend to go off in my support, I tend to over support. Um, there's a really well respected voice teacher from New York named David Jones who talks about how, with most vocal students who are experiencing issues, you're usually dealing with somebody who you need to get their energy going, or you're dealing with someone who you need to like teach them how to back off. So for those of us who are like intense kind of people who have a lot of energy and maybe perfectionism, we tend to over support and push our voices because we're going for a certain sound. And then there's other people who are just need to learn how to pump the gas a little bit more on their support, which might be where you're coming from. I don't know.
I could see it definitely. I definitely don't breathe deeply enough most of the time. So then singing, I have to remind myself to do that. And when I do that, it works.
Yeah, that's a good point. Breathing deeply. Because I was also going to say one of the ways you can kind of, if you're not sure what I'm talking about right now, if you think about the way that our voices tend to change if we get nervous, that's a good example of this. Is like when we get nervous, we usually come off of our support, we come off of our voice. And so you'll notice, like, if you're going on a date that you're really nervous about, or if you have to speak in front of a group of people, you might find that your voice is shaky, or it's higher in pitch than it normally is, or it just doesn't sound like you, or you might tire yourself out more. Like, you might get home and be like, oh, why is my voice so tired? Because, like, you got nervous and you came off of your breath, basically, and so your voice gets fluttery and inconsistent. Do you ever get that?
Yeah, for sure. Mostly when I haven't sung in a while. Or like, yeah, nerves for sure. I mean, I'm pretty good at if I have to sing, I have to remember to breathe, otherwise it doesn't work. So that usually allows it to work pretty well. But yeah, constriction is the part that gets me when I'm stressed. It like closes up a bit more than I need, and I sort of need to just.
Yeah, because when we get stressed, we also lock our muscles up too, right? Like if you're totally relaxed, then all your muscles are relaxed as well. If you're stressed and nervous, then you're going to be locking up your rib cage, your intercostals. You might lock up your jaw. Like that's going to lead to problems in your voice as well. The other thing that I hear that she's doing is that her tone is inconsistent as well. And what I mean by tone is like when she goes up high, it's a different vocal quality than when she's singing low and stuff like that. So one of the big goals when you're working on becoming a better singer is to try to have a consistent tone through your whole range, whether you're singing high or low or loud or soft. So less experienced singers will have big shifts of tone where it will feel like a sort of clunk into the next area of your voice, almost like you're shifting the gears on a really old-timey standard car. And then your goal is to smooth that out so that all the way through your range, your voice is always the same kind of timbre.
Which version did you draw most of this information from?
I was listening to Red Dress and Fantasy, not so the two produced versions, the music videos.
Oh, okay. I was kind of curious. There is a possibility that the take you're listening to is a composite of different takes mixed together.
Yeah. I don't think that really makes it any more in tune.
No, I was just thinking because you were talking about the changing of gears between sections.
Oh, I'm just talking vocal technique. I can hear that.
That would make sense
in her voice, but that could be part of it too. But that should be something that would fix it in theory, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't get the clunk happening.
Yeah.
You just get sharp changes.
Yeah. The other way to also, if you want to kind of feel how you can come off your voice, is if you try singing while you're walking really quickly or if you're running. And I always, like, I'm an experienced singer, but if I'm walking really fast, I can't sing in tune. If you can do that, you should go into musical theater. Like, that's a skill. Yeah, I love her. So I'm going to talk about some ways that if you feel like some of these problems resonate with you when you're trying to sing, I'm going to give you some ways that you can actually work your way out of this. But before we do that, I want to just listen to a little bit of her other single right now because I think it exemplifies a little more of what I'm talking about. So this is a little bit of Fantasy by Sarah Brand.
I'm staying up past the midnight hour, feeling everything to the moon and stars.
So you can hear that shaky vibrato. She is not just always sharp, she's back and forth, so that's both under support and over support.
I'm dreaming
Or like in between the note changes. When she changes,
Mind's going wild and my heart beats too.
it's usually like right at the initial start of the pitch. There's like, is that what you're talking about?
What are you talking about?
So it's more present in the other one, but when she shifts like large jumps or when
Mhm.
she starts a pitch, it'll sort of waver.
Yeah,
Sound kind of like she doesn't know where the pitch is or something.
I still think it's more of a support issue.
I'm just questioning. I don't know what it is. Is that
She-
what you were talking about before?
Yeah, because like if you have really good support, you can jump. You should be able to jump to a pitch, thinking of you, right? But if your support isn't there, who knows where you're going, right? Could be anywhere. I think she also does have some ear stuff that she could work on, but I am hearing more support issues than anything else. You can hear in that though, like all the things that we were just talking about. What are you hearing in there?
It was mostly that the initial, because sometimes it's quite wide. It's like it's sort of like a start vibrato that, or like scoops that are kind of quick or something. That's what I'm hearing mostly, and
Yeah.
of course the sharpness. But
Yeah.
it's mostly the
She
scoops.
often like drifts upwards too. Like sometimes she'll actually start on the right pitch and then she'll drift up, which I think is a matter of like she's trying to sustain that pitch by pushing air too hard. So sustaining a pitch and staying on the same pitch is something you have to focus well on. But speaking of focus too, in arguing against people who say that she's doing this on purpose, I don't know how you do this on purpose. And I really mean like you can okay, if I'm trying to sing like a quarter tone out of tune like this, thinking of you, I have to focus so hard to do that and most people do because honestly, if you grow up listening to a bunch of really tonal Western music, most of us have a very strong perception of tonality. That's why a lot of people respond to this way or saying, oh, it's out of tune, because most of us have a little bit of an intrinsic awareness of like what tuning is quote unquote supposed to sound like, right?
Yeah, we can recognize it.
Yeah.
It's recognizable as not the right color or something.
Yeah, so I argue that actually, in some ways, it's harder to sing out of tune intentionally than to sing into. And it's very hard to sing. She's often hitting quarter tones as opposed to either whole or semitones. And that is really hard. We were trying to sing in quarter tones together just before we started recording, and we couldn't do it because it takes a lot of concentration, and everybody has to really practice that ahead of time and in rehearsal. The other thing that I think means that she's not doing it on purpose is that fluttery vibrato. You can't fake that. I can't do that. Like, you can't fake bad vibrato. You either have it because of an issue or you've worked really hard to get rid of it.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
Yeah. So, if you feel like you can understand that you don't like how she sounds, and maybe you think maybe you might sound a little bit like this, how do you work through these issues? Like, when I diagnose a singer as having these issues, what are the things that I do to help them through it? First of all, we start with breath. All of your support comes from your breath. So you don't even start with singing stuff on pitches. You're going to be starting with stuff that's learning how to initiate and then release your breath really healthily. Stuff like shh, 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 or shh for as long as you can.
Is that what those are for? I never know what those are for.
Yeah, so most people when they first start lessons, if I get them to do the long shh, it'll be shh, and they'll run out of breath really quickly because they're fluctuating their air, right? Just like she's fluctuating her pitches and her vibrato in her voice.
Oh, the air output isn't consistent enough
Yeah,
to
so if you
sustain
think of the way that I always explain it in my first voice lesson with basically everyone is if you have a balloon that you filled with air, if you let it all go right away, it's going to go around the room and all the air is going to go out and then you have no air left. But if you just open the top a little bit and you let a little bit of air out at a time, you get the and you want to get a consistent stream of air. You don't want it to go you want it to be consistent.
Yep.
Um
And the more consistent it is, the better it'll be in tune.
Yes, tuning, support, vibrato, it all starts with breath. One of the things I also do with breath, so once you've done all the shushing and whatever, you can also do stuff like so if your bubble, as I call that sound, which is just like a lip trill, if that's going or you're losing it, if you can't sustain that, it means you're not supporting. Or your support is coming in and going out. So one of the things I often do with students who have major tuning issues is I get them to go through the melody of their song just on the bubble. So that's what I would be doing with Sarah. And it works wonders because your voice will just crap out if your support isn't there. So you'll get and it'll just go. So you know what the issue is. And the more you get the air going consistently, when you go back to singing it with pitches, it's going to be in tune.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. The other thing, too, that you can work on for that is using your consonants really energetically. So a lot of people, when they start singing pop music, start to really basically mumble through their words because we hear in our ears that pop singers are not enunciating things like opera singers do or musical theater singers, but they still have to enunciate. And when you initiate consonants, like if you're singing on like a V sound, you can feel your support bouncing in and out. And support, I mean, is like this is your low tummy muscles, your low abs. So when you start being really mindful about using your consonants energetically, that can also solve a lot of problems. The other thing that I think is so then you get the support going. You can also really work on tuning, training your ear to hear your pitches more effectively. You and I both did a lot of this when we were in music school, right? This was a huge part of our program.
I did some this morning.
Oh, really? What are you doing?
Just, it's a program that generates random melodies, and then you have to tell it what it did.
Oh, fun!
It's very fun.
I love this shit. Yeah, but everyone can improve at this. Everyone can get better. Like when I started going to music school, I already had a relatively good handle on ear training. And so when I had this course, I initially was sort of like, I don't think I need this. But even from that starting place, I got by working on the exercises we were given for identifying pitches and basically creating kind of a mind castle of like how pitches relate to each other and learning how to navigate between them very cerebrally made me way more aware of my tuning and where I was inconsistent. And it also made my hearing much more sensitive. I noticed like whenever I was in music school, sounds would hurt my ears way more because you actually I feel like you get more sensitive when you start actually like literally tuning in to that.
For sure, yeah. The I mean, you don't have to go to music school to learn how to hear things. Like
No.
there's many apps you can download. And just doing them even like once a day, it changes how you listen to music, how you write it, how you sing it, how you play it, because it really connects you to, especially if you're doing functional ear training, which is the thing that I was doing. It connects you to where the sound is going to go, so you sort of become a future, I guess, what is it, fortune teller of the sound, if you will. This is, of course, if you're learning Western harmony, but
Yeah.
which is the majority of music nowadays.
I mean, that's what we're talking about today. So
Yeah. Anyway,
that's
it's
fine.
good to mention that
Yeah.
it's not music theory; it's Western music theory.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, learning like solfege or solfege I like because I learned it and I think it's great. But any way that you can manage to connect the sound with something in your mind that is like a abstract concept that will allow you to sort of build a picture of what's going to happen next or what has happened.
Yeah.
It opens so many doors. You don't even have to read music to have this. It's helpful, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, exactly. Point really being like, so solfege, what you're talking about. Most people might not know that word, but most people know what it is because most people have seen the motherfucking Sound of Music. So we've all heard the do, a deer, a female deer, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But you can take that stupid song, and if you just take that scale out of it, you come to what Mr. Zoltan Kodály, the guy with the coolest name in music history, basically really worked hard to bring to people, which was the concept that everyone can learn to sing. Everyone can do what you're saying. Like, you can learn how to identify pitches and stuff in your own head without reading music. And it starts by learning that scale of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and then learning how to navigate between do, mi, do, la, do, ti, like all that stuff. The more you start challenging yourself to be able to make those leaps and understanding how they fit together in like I picture it as like a mental picture in my mind, but some people learn kinesthetically with like hand
The hands
signals.
are great.
Never worked for me, but it's like different people learn different ways. So whenever I encounter, actually most of my voice students, but often my violin students, people who have issues with tuning, I usually bring that into it of teaching people to sing in solfege. And I also often get my singers to match pitches with me. So I'll play a note on the piano and say, okay, you need to match this, because it's they can't tell on their own if they're out of tune, but if they can hear like C, and then they're singing, okay, fine, C. Like, get to that, what we call the center of the pitch. And the more accurately you can find the center of your pitches, the better you can sing, but it takes practice. This takes me back to one of my first points, which is that this all takes practice. You don't just get born with this skill, necessarily, but you build it every day. Like you're saying, 10 minutes a day, half an hour a day. If you like, you can do as much as you want. So that's where I would start from. So you start with breath, support, and then you start learning to navigate your ear training in your mind and with your voice. The other thing with voice, too, is a weirder thing to try to describe, which is that you can feel when you're out of tune.
I've never had that happen.
Okay.
I think I've heard it. Like, I've recorded myself singing, and then so you're saying that you're saying that when you're singing by yourself and you don't have context, you can still feel it.
No, it's about context, actually.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like, I never really noticed this too much until I was intentionally singing out of tune. So, or not out of tune, but in quarter tones. So, yeah, there we go. Yeah! So when I was in music school, one of my very good friends wrote a piece that was all in quarter tones. So most of our Western music we think of in whole tones or half tones. Do, re is a whole tone, and then mi to fa is a half tone. If you can visualize a piano in your head, it's like the whole tones are white to white keys. Usually the half tones are, or like a whole tone would be something that has a black key between them, actually. And then if there isn't the black key between them, if it's a black to a white, it's a half tone, basically.
Well, just the smallest distance that
The
you can
smallest
do.
distance. So then if you cut that in half again, you get a quarter tone, which we're not really used to hearing, but it does occur in your favorite kind of music, like spectral music and
Yep.
stuff.
I will say that Sarah Brand isn't singing quarter tones.
Not
She's just-
intentionally, but it sometimes ends up that way, which I love. It's so fun. I challenge all of you listeners to try to sing along with her in her tuning, because it's really fun. It's really challenging. But to learn how to sing, when you're learning how to sing in quarter tones, if you're singing a quarter tone apart from someone who's standing next to you, you actually get a different feeling in your body where the vibrations don't line up, and you get this kind of buzzing sensation.
Yeah, it's called, I've heard it being called beating.
Mm-hmm.
So when the pitches are very, when they're super close, the beating is gone. If they're perfectly in unison, the beating is gone. If they're slightly out, the beating starts happening. And I think, can't remember. There's a rule about it, but the farther, so there's like right on it, you don't hear any beating. A tiny bit, you get quite quick beating, and then you get farther enough away, you get quite slow beating, and then you go farther and you get fast again.
And then the slow beating, that would jive because it would be exactly half or something. Is that how it would work?
Well, if it's perfectly in tune, you won't hear any beating.
Will you feel it?
You feel the beating?
Will you?
Yeah, well, yeah, you'll hear the buzzing. It'd be more like a buzz rather than a
Mm.
beat. If it's beating, it means that it's dissonant, in my opinion. It's like there's two or more. Basically, it means that the sounds are phasing with each other.
Mm.
Imagine like a camera shutter speed. Do you know? Does that make sense?
Go for it.
So like, do you know how cameras work? They take a picture. They take like I don't know, 60 frames a second. They take 60 pictures a second, and then they play that back. So imagine you're does that make any sense? This doesn't make any sense.
No?
But
Coulda fooled me.
It's the wave. So like you have like in phase and out of phase, and what's happening
Mm.
is the peaks and the valleys are not lining up. So you
Mhm.
have like a sine wave, and that's what's is that what's giving the beating? I think that's what's giving the beating. I'd have to check this.
So that's one thing you can feel if you're with other musicians. I would also argue that for singers, because our instrument is inside our bodies, it's a very kinesthetic thing. So when you learn to sing in tune, I think you do actually feel it in the way that, like, I often have students who don't have perfect pitch, who when they don't have the introduction to their song, they'll still start it in the right key because they've memorized that key in their voice.
Yeah.
So you
That
can
happens a lot.
yeah, you can feel that. So if you can start to identify that feeling and start working with it, like it might take some help with a teacher of being like, that was in tune, what did that feel like? And then trying to memorize that feeling because you might not realize it yourself at first, but if somebody is going to help you identify what it feels like when your technique is right and what it feels like when your technique is wrong. I mean, I've done a lot of that, not for tuning issues, but for support issues. It's oftentimes my teacher has been like, that was right, what did it feel like? And then I have to like internalize it and be like, okay, it felt like that. Okay, then you memorize it. Then you know what it feels like to sing with that kind of technique. So that's part of what I train people to do as well.
Yeah, the feeling is a big. Now that you put it that way, it makes more sense to me. Like I don't sing in a choir anymore, but when I did, there were off days and on days, and the on days felt really open. I could sing high without stressing it. It was, even if the piece wasn't like nice for my range, it still was like open, and I just felt like I felt big and sort of, it projected. Everything was loose. It was like a machine. It was just working. And then
Yeah.
the off days, it was
Love those days.
Yeah, they're so nice.
I don't always have those days either.
And then the off days are just like you don't want to sing anymore because it hurts.
Part of that also comes from just tension in your body too. So you say loose, like that's a good word to use. Like when you have tension either from stress or like whatever you've been doing, the main points of tension in your body that are going to affect your voice are going to be your jaw, your tongue, your solar plexus. So if your solar plexus is tight, you can actually feel that should be squishy right in the middle of your torso there. If that's not squishy, if that's hard, it's going to lock up your ribs, it's going to lock up your intercostal muscles. When that gets tight, it makes it really hard to sing, and you can hear the tension when you're trained to hear different kinds of tension. Like I know when I hear a vocalist, I can tell, okay, that's jaw tension, oh, that's tongue tension, oh, it's solar plexus tension. With Missy here, I actually think it's might be some solar plexus tension. A little bit because you can hear her because of the vibrato thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like a false vibrato that she's creating with her tongue, which is a very common thing to hear in pop music intentionally. Or if you watch, for instance, Ariana Grande singing, you can see her jaw shaking when she has vibrato because she's doing it manually with her jaw, which is actually a really tense way of doing it. And you can hear it in her sound if you know what to listen for.
Interesting.
Yeah, so singing the voice is a very difficult instrument because it's not just about training yourself to like cerebrally be able to understand pitches and stuff, but also it comes back to like, how's your body doing? Like, are your shoulders tight?
Don't eat chocolate before you sing.
No, that's silly. Eat all the chocolate you want.
Don't have a banana.
I think look, whatever.
Don't increase the phlegm.
Do what makes you feel good. I can eat whatever I want before I sing, for the record. We can do a whole episode on myths about singing at some point that I don't believe are true.
I avoided bananas for a concert one time.
Interesting. Why?
I was young, and I was like,
What did you have against? What do you think bananas do to your voice?
They increase the phlegm, so then you get like.
Why?
That's what someone told me. I don't
Who
know.
told you this?
There's the people in the choir. I don't know.
People who were singers?
It was a community choir, so it was I mean, it was fine. It doesn't really matter. I just didn't eat bananas. It's not a huge deal.
I just have never heard that one. I don't know what
Or maybe the
tape
bananas
is.
were good. It might have been the bananas. I don't know. Something
If any
was there.
fruit, most people avoid citruses
Hmm.
because they're acidic. I don't have a problem with that. Again, if you're lactose intolerant, don't eat cheese before singing. That's really the only one I can really think of. Like, just do
Well, I
what
mean,
you
if you're
want to
lactose intolerant, you probably won't eat cheese in general.
do. What, you do
Do I eat cheese? When do I eat cheese?
all the time.
What? When?
I don't know. You're constantly doing things and being like, oh, now I feel terrible because I did this thing. 'Cause
I
I'm
don't eat. I
allergic
don't
to
do dairy. I don't
everything.
do dairy. I eat the bread sometimes, but that's about it. I don't eat
Oh,
the
right.
dairy.
It's the bread that fucks you up. I forgot.
Wait, no, the dairy is the worst one. That's why I don't eat that one.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, this beverage is bread, so
Yeah. Sweet bread.
liquid bread.
The other thing that I would love to talk about with the vibrations thing, though, is just and feeling it. It was making me, when I was thinking about this concept of like being able to feel music or feeling when something's in tune, it did remind me of our good old friend, most famous composer most people know, Mr. Beethoven, right? Who famously continued to write music after he went deaf, and the story is that he could feel the vibrations of his piano in the floor. I think also, like, obviously he knew his theory and he could probably write from his head and continue to write music because he understood what was going on. But I think that's an interesting concept too, is like if you can feel the vibrations of what you're creating. I feel like that's also another way of like if you're really dealing with someone who has a lot of trouble actually hearing that they're out of tune, that's an interesting avenue to go into too, of vibrations and like also the fact that a lot of singers who don't have tuning issues often practice with like their ears plugged or with their hands over their ears so that they're not hearing the like
They do?
yeah, because you're always getting false feedback because your mouth is in the front of your face and your ears are in the back of your head. So you never ever hear yourself accurately.
So what does blocking the ears do?
You're not hearing it currently. It's like it just kind of people cup their ears. I don't really actually know how that works. So I don't work with that often. But I do know some of my friends who study with their crazy Italian teacher in Italy. He often gets them to wear earplugs when they're practicing because then you're not distracted by. Okay, so here's the thing: when I'm singing, what I'm hearing myself inaccurately, so I'm either thinking that I'm more shrill or I'm more dark than I actually am because I'm not hearing myself accurately through my own ears unless I actually record myself and listen back in the room. So to block out when you're not blocking out those perceptions, you might start making adjustments like, oh, I'm going to add extra like false vibrato because I don't feel like my sound is like vibrating enough, or I might change my pitch because I think I'm under pitch but I'm not, that kind of stuff. So when you eliminate your own misconceptions from your perception of your own sound, you can often fix a lot of problems just from not listening to yourself. There's a big benefit from just shutting off your ears. And I would also say mentally too, because I have a lot of students who feel like they have a lot of insecurities about their voice, and so they sing and they're just like, oh, I hate how I sound. It's like you got to turn that voice off. It's not useful.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing ever.
It's not going to get you anywhere just to talk down to yourself all the time. It's a huge part of my teaching is just telling people it's fine. Let's just keep going. I'll tell you if we need to fix something. Like, just trust me, trust yourself, that kind of stuff.
Trust yourself.
Trust yourself. Trust yourself. It's a really obscure home movies reference. So those are all my like voice teacher feedbacks. So I mean, my conclusion to this is number 1, never stop doing something because people tell you that you suck. Fuck them. You go do what you fucking want to do. Number 2, if you are a singer and you have insecurities about your voice, if you have the time to practice, if you have the money to spend on some voice lessons, do it. I guarantee that you will get better if you start practicing, and if you can afford to have someone professional help you with that, you will get better and you will have more confidence and you will be able to sing and enjoy yourself more. I know you will. And number 3, like, Sarah, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, I love everything that you're doing right now. So, like, if you want some voice lessons, I'm over here. But I think you had some feedback on, like, not the voice side, but more the production side.
Yeah, I mean, the production sounds fine. It's just, I really want to know why no one tuned it. That's the thing. Why
Well, I wonder if she, like, just wanted someone to record it and to not work on it like that. Like,
But they worked on the rest of it.
okay, what do you mean by that?
So somebody had to record guitar, drums, and whatever. I think there's a piano, e-piano at some point. And then in order to make it sound the way that it did, they had to mix it together. So they had to take her vocal and they had to compress it and they had to add probably reverb. It sounded pretty dry, but they had to make it all sound good together, which does require editing her vocal a little bit. So I'm just wondering why they didn't do. I mean, it would have been a lot of work.
I mean, to fix that, you'd have to go the Rebecca Black route of just completely just auto-tuning fucking everything. Like, what I like about her is that she's actually singing with her voice.
Yeah, you can tell. There's
Yeah,
no-
it's an authentic voice,
there's
and
no
I'm
processing on it.
always going to respect an authentic voice more than a false or fixed or produced
Mhm.
voice every time.
Yeah, for sure. It just seems like an odd choice, but we got this great video, so I'm not gonna complain too much.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, what was the thought process?
I know my question is really like, does she know that it's out of tune and she wanted to release it regardless, or because she keeps saying it's a sociological experiment now, or does she actually just not hear it and this is her passion project and she
kinda
doesn't
think
care?
I think she doesn't hear it because, like, I remember when I was younger. Not that she's young, but like when I was in a beginner.
She looks pretty young to me.
Anyway, I was like, 21 or whatever. I sang and I showed it to people, and they're like, "Wow, it's really flat." And I was like, "I don't hear it. I didn't hear that I was flat."
Oh,
And
okay.
it took me a long time to realize that I was flat. And
Yeah.
now I hear it. I'm like, oh, I'm flat. We need
Right.
to redo that take because it's not right.
Yep.
And it took me a very long. I mean, I wasn't like quite this intense, but I was like, it was significantly enough that people who weren't musicians could tell,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an issue.
And that happens, I think, with a lot of, like, I noticed when I was in music school and you were taking these musicianship classes of ear training and stuff. You're taking it with instrumentalists and singers, and there's often instrumentalists who are really good at what they do on their own instruments, and they can't sing in tune because they don't know how to support their voices. So, like, you notice a lot of really out of tune singing in these classes coming from, like, the guitar players, and, the drummers and stuff, and they work on it, but you start from a place of unconscious incompetence, and then you work into conscious competence, and then conscious, and then hopefully working towards unconscious competence, not having to think about your tuning all the time.
Okay. I was curious what the last one was going to be.
I know, I had a moment there. I was like, this is going back to really early days of my education.
But yeah, definitely. So I would put money on that she doesn't know, or she knows probably now, but she didn't know when she
Yeah.
made it originally. Mostly because I had that experience where I didn't know, and also it physically hurt me when people would say that it was out of tune because I was like,
Oh.
no, just because I was like 21 proud person who nothing can go wrong and
Hey, our
whatever.
voices are very personal.
They
Like,
are.
It's
They
very
are.
hard to take criticism on your voice and to use that constructively.
So I figured that out mostly, but I would hazard a guess that she still has to go through the bit where she realizes that maybe she should take voice lessons, or
Okay, I'm
maybe
gonna.
just do a different take. Maybe this take is just a horrible day for her, and it's not going well.
I don't think that's the case though, because when we look at her, there's an acoustic version of her singing this and playing her guitar in her bedroom. It looks like, and it sounds the same.
It does, yeah.
So to me, there's no difference in the produced version as there is in her candid version. So unless it truly is intentional, which would be legit impressive.
Yeah,
if
she would be the
is
best
singing
singer
like
on the
this-
planet.
Yeah, I would be floored. I just don't think that's what's going on.
I would take voice lessons with her after that.
Yeah, cool. Extended techniques, man. That's cool. I love it. Like, I genuinely love listening to it because I love things that are where I have to identify what the hell's going on.
It's so beautiful.
And the other thing about Sarah too is, of course, she markets herself as a director. She's directed other people's videos. She did all her own videos. Again, a lot of work. I respect, but you have some criticisms for the video production quality.
Yeah, I
think.
mean, the red dress one's not so bad. I'm not a videographer, but I did notice that, like, I mean, it's pretty obvious. The fantasy one has like frame rate things, and then for some reason there's the black bar that appears on the bottom.
Mm.
So
Maybe she's intentionally wanting to make it look like it's amateur, but also maybe it just is amateur. Like, my first album it sounds like it's recorded in a living room because it was.
yeah,
You know, that's the
Yeah.
means that I had. I didn't have a grant. I had no money. So I just made the album because I wanted to.
For sure, for sure. I guess my question would be, well, I question why was it necessary for her to do everything? She's already singing. She probably wrote the song, right? So she sang, wrote, directed. She edited the video. That's a lot to take on. Maybe no one wanted to do it because she didn't know anyone would.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot. I don't
I mean,
have.
I
any
always
music.
have to do everything for most of my stuff.
Yeah.
Usually,
But I mean,
it's kind of the reality of being a musician these days. A lot of the time is you don't have
Yeah.
the budget to.
you got to do everything yourself.
I would love to be able to have a manager and a sound engineer and a producer and blah blah blah. Of course. I mean, I don't know what her means are. Maybe I think one of the big stupid criticisms you see is people saying, "Well, she just got money from her daddy," which of course I love how she pointed out was very sexist. I listened to an interview with her and she was like, "That's sexist because no one would ever say that about someone if she was a man, they would never make that point in that exact way." I think she's absolutely spot on about that. So the
they
perception
wouldn't call him daddy, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I just think the perception that a woman can only achieve something that's is expensive if she has a man paying for it. I'm really glad that she made that point because, like, fuck that shit. I just really don't jive with that, and I'm glad she called it out. I mean, the other interesting thing about her, too, she's a sociology major, so it is possible that this is a big experiment she's doing. I don't really buy that, but it's a cool conversation piece that she has thrown out into the world, and she backs it up with the master's degree that she's currently getting in Oxford.
I mean, you could argue that maybe, like, she's an amateur singer, and she doesn't have support, as you say, and what she did is she just exaggerated her, not like she doesn't breathe when she starts, and then this is the result. So in that way, maybe it's possible that this is a experiment.
In what way?
Well, because she isn't intentionally doing it. It's just happening because of the way that she's singing, because she doesn't know how to sing, because she's amateur, and then blah, blah, blah. That would be the only way that it would be an experiment for me.
Can I talk about what I actually do like about her voice?
Yeah, let's go.
I feel like it's only fair.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because no one is ever just like a blanket bad singer. There's always qualities there. I think she has a really nice, clear,
It
nice
gets stuck in your
tone.
head.
She's very bright, very light. She doesn't push her voice. It's very pleasant. She has got a nice timbre to it with some, if she wanted to work through some of her support stuff, I think she has a lot of potential actually to have a very nice voice. I really do. And I'm not just saying that like this. Whenever I'm diagnosing a new student, I'm always thinking, okay, what's the good stuff here? And then what are we working on? It's never like, oh, she's shit, get out of this room. It's what are the qualities that we want to bring out and what do we want to work on? You can also hear like oftentimes if you listen through her whole track, like she does sometimes get into her high notes with a lot of energy and there's lots of space to her voice there. She actually gets a really nice tone some of the time. It's there.
I liked the tone most of the time. It was just the wrong
Yeah.
pitch. Like, especially the weird, creepy parts where it sounds like the theremin in Fantasy. The mid.
I love that.
It's like the middle eight, I guess. It's like
I love
it's like
that. Let's
three
see.
fourths.
This stuff?
Yeah, this part.
This stuff, yeah.
Like that's a good tone.
I love that. Let's go to the ending though. Oh yeah, okay, hold on. Let's go back on this because this is our favorite part here. The harmonies with herself. So now she's gone up an entire half key. I love that. Love that.
And then this up again.
I have to concentrate so hard to sing it in tune with her. And then the two voices together. Oh, I just love it.
And then the unresolved last note.
We were talking before we started recording about how she She wants to finish on. Oh, so we talked about solfege. Do re mi fa sol la ti do. She's trying to finish on the do, ti do, but she ends up overshooting and going to a sharp do, ti di. But the chord is a 1 chord with a do mi so. I love that. I just love it because I love dissonance. So I love hearing a do with a fucking sharp do on top of it. It makes me so happy.
It was genuinely beautiful. I remember listening to it the first time being like, wow, I want to write this, but I can't do it because it's so, it's something else.
But you found someone who had notated her actual pitches, right?
Yeah, there's a video out there of somebody who had transcribed microtonally transcribed it for everyone to watch. We'll post a link in the description. But it was cool to look at. I was like, whoa, it's really hard to transcribe this. I tried to do a little bit of it and just like figure it out, but it's like it's far enough that it's really hard.
Yeah. Genuinely, I'm not trying to make fun of her at all. Honestly, I think she's a really cool person. I would love to go for a beer with her. I think she's got a huge backbone to stand up to all the people who are being shit to her. Like, my favorite YouTube comment that she posted is somebody had said something like, Sarah, do you know what key you're singing in? And she posted, all of them. And I was like, ugh! Yes, girl. Yes. You don't give them what they want. You just keep being you. I love that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
she's so sassy.
I mean, the easiest thing would be to just remove them, but they're not gone.
She's choosing to respond, but she's not responding in like a petty, like argumentative way.
Or
she's
like
just going with it.
Even
I love
turning off comments. The comments are still on.
Yeah.
And it's got almost 1 million views.
Yeah.
It's gonna break pretty soon.
Yeah. So Sarah Brand has a full album coming out apparently this year. I'm excited for it. Yeah, she does.
What?
Yeah. These 2 singles are the single releases of what is to come. So
this will be interesting to see if she tunes it all because of the backlash.
I think it's going to be the same stuff, but it would be interesting to see if she started with this as a publicity stunt and then the rest of her album is just great. That would be really funny to me, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it's probably going to be the same sort of thing, but I'm very curious. She's got a website. You can check her out. She's got like her director credits on here. You can look at the other videos.
Where did you
she's
find
done.
the information that there's an album coming out?
On her Spotify. I think it said it's going to come out this year.
Oh damn.
Apparently.
Okay. Well, I gotta like the Spotify. I get the updates. Gotta get
Yeah.
that going.
Yeah, start following her if you want to.
Already following on Tidal, so gotta get my.
Tidal.
It's much better than Spotify.
You're not wrong. I think you're the only person who's listened to my album on Tidal, and I think that's really funny. I can see it. Like, oh, Nicholas, thanks. Thanks for the listen, bud.
It's way better. 3-dimensional sound. I'm gonna just plug them right now. That's fine.
What's that now?
They have surround. All of their masters.
Oh,
are
you're plugging
surround
Tidal. You're not
sound.
plugging my
No.
album.
What?
Thanks. Tidal just really needs your fucking press. Thank you.
Well, we need to kill Spotify, so you know.
I know. At some point, perhaps we should do an episode on why, as musicians, we thoroughly dislike Spotify.
I mean, I hate Spotify not because of their music, not because they don't pay anyone, because it sounds bad.
It's a good argument.
Their audio codec is not, or whatever you call it, I don't think that's what it's called, but the compression or whatever they use to like change it slightly is bad. It just sounds bad.
Yeah.
I can tell the difference between Spotify and a Tidal.
Dang.
I did a back-to-back test.
Yeah.
The Tidal sounded better.
Okay. Well, food for thought. Maybe a future thing we will rant more about.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because when you listen on Tidal, Sarah Brand sounds so much better. It's like you can hear the room she was in, you can hear the church and the people dancing. It's
I think you're thinking of my album.
well, you both did that in church. You guys are buddies.
Practically.
Church buddies.
Man, I would so hang out in a second. Also, both of her music videos are filmed in Oxford, and I love Oxford. It's so pretty. I want to go back.
Well, you have to do like what is that called? Get one of those like research grants where you can go and study with someone.
I'll go study with Sarah Brand.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Oxford.
Yeah. I can exchange voice lessons for
She can teach you how to do
she
video
can
editing.
shoot my next music video.
You got it.
Yeah. Anything you want, you got it. All right, anything left to say about Sarah Brand? Did we leave anything on the table?
I think we've said everything. I'm kind of curious whether or not she wrote or played the instruments in the background.
No, I don't think so, because when you look at her live version of playing her guitar, it's quite beginner. It looks like how I play guitar, which is terrible. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna say she's a better guitar player than I am. Actually,
I didn't even know you played guitar.
I took lessons when I was a teenager. I
Oh,
can do
wow.
like 4 chords,
Oh, nice,
really
okay. You
terribly.
can do the ukulele stuff.
No, I don't play the ukulele.
I know, but like it's the same thing.
Right, no, don't even say that. It's not the same thing.
What are you talking about?
Do 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 do. What is that? Nonsense. Nonsense.
Just so everybody is aware, that's the tuning of the ukulele.
Do 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 do.
That's what it sounds like.
From the bottom to the top.
Yeah, it's not equal.
What the fuck?
I mean, I used to hate it, but I kind of like it now. It's like it's got that nasty twang where it's like out of tune the entire time. I love it.
Well, that's why we love Sarah Brand. Love you, Sarah Brand. Please keep doing what you're doing. I
Yeah,
support. I really support.
Hashtag support Sarah Brand.
I had such a fun time researching this episode.
Yeah, if you hear this and you wanna do like a follow up interview where we interview you.
Oh my god, I would love that. I would
That'd be
love that. I want to talk to you. I want to chat about your process of writing and like recording.
Yeah, I
honestly.
mean
Like,
it'd be cool to do like a live, like vocal lesson where we like.
I would love
that
to
would be
do
great.
that, or I would love to just ask about like how she went into studio and what was going on with that and
Yeah, this be a
who
give and
she
take, you know.
hired. I tried to find information on who her backing
Yeah.
musicians were. I couldn't find anything about that, so I'm genuinely curious about that too, like who you're working with and.
I doubt. Well, I mean, depends who they are, but there's a chance they won't come forward.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, it's quite a. You have to be strong to come forward. It's like that. There was a metal band that like made up. I think they made he pretended that he had fans when he didn't.
Oh,
By
I
making-
remember that guy. Yeah. I really liked that guy up until the point where he screwed over all the bands he had
Yeah.
as his opening bands, and then
Yeah.
they lost a bunch of money because of it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what his name is. It was a
It
fun
doesn't
story
matter.
up until the point where he screwed over other musicians and venues, and I was
I
like,
mean, he was
"Eh."
playing like 500-seat venues with like 10 followers on
Yeah.
Instagram or whatever.
It was a cool stunt, but I don't like musicians who screw over other musicians. It kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to make it at all, but
Yeah.
you can't just lie about it because that just you're impacting other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're just impacting other people. Like, if there's no money, if you're the only one who's like spending the money, it's okay. But if other people are investing and then it's all like just a charade or charade.
I say charade. My least favorite game.
It's a great game. We played Cranium. It's got charades in there.
I like the rest of Cranium.
Oh, okay.
No, I just, you know what? I just like Pictionary, but that's beside the point.
Pictionary's great too. But anyway, the point is, pay musicians.
Don't pay musicians.
No,
That's the
pay-
point.
No, that's not the point. That's the reverse point.
Please pay your musicians.
No, not please. No,
Oh.
pay them.
Oh, okay.
There's no question. There's not, if it's nice, do it. No, you must do it. They work for things. They're doing
Yeah.
things.
They do it for exposure. We know that exposure.
They-
You just like when I go to my landlord at the beginning of the month, I give them like 9 exposure tokens, and they're like, "Oh yeah, great."
I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
But I don't get exposure.
Kidding.
Exposure tokens.
All right.
Actually, exposure token would be great. If we got exposure tokens and we could pay our landlord with
I
exposure.
just actually probably still couldn't pay my landlord with that.
Well, imagine like you went to like a thing and they're like, oh, we're gonna pay you an exposure, sweet, and then basically you give your landlord's Instagram account like 100 followers. That's how it works.
Oh, gross. Oh.
And he's like, transfer of Instagram followers to Ben something or other. I don't know his name, but you get
Shapiro?
what I mean. Sure, Ben
That's the
Shapiro.
first Ben I think of. Ugh.
Wouldn't that be so weird? Like musicians, they work for for followers or whatever experience tokens.
I mean,
means.
we
And you can, like,
essentially do, but we also have to have another job.
But, like,
as well.
then you can transfer them. That would be the weird part. It's like, here are some fans that like my music. Oh, let me just give them to someone else who
Yeah.
like sucks.
Hey, if that was the case, Sarah Brand would be making a killing off of her music because she's getting some mad exposure right now, for sure.
Lots of sites are picking it up.
Yeah, they are. So I'm interested to see where we're gonna keep following Sarah. We're gonna see where she goes. I would also just say one more thing about if the benefit of her working on her technique is if she was to get to the point where she was touring and doing shows regularly, you're gonna need to have enough vocal technique that you're not gonna destroy
Yeah.
your voice on
Like
tour.
what happened to Adele is pretty sad.
I mean, that's a big conversation, but surface level, yes.
Okay, I only know the surface level, so
Yeah.
we can talk about it later.
But yeah, it's another whole conversation. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if in the future she ends up having more of a performance career. Or if
I'm
this is
stoked on the
just-
album.
Yeah, woo! Keep
Release
an eye out. So,
it!
yeah, keep an eye on
Release
her Spotify and
Release it.
you know what? When she does her
Brand,
whole
release it.
album, we'll do a whole album review. How's that? It's gonna be fun. We're gonna.
That better be next
crack a few
week. Sarah Brown, are
brews.
you listening? You better release that next week. I really want to listen to it.
Yeah, I'm stoked. All right, Nicholas. Where can people find you on the internet?
Oh right. I do a band, Happy Kid Toy Band. I release stuff under Nick Grainwing for some dumb reason. I don't care. And that's about it.
Yeah, and I'm Holly Beckmeyer. You can find me on all streaming services. I have an album out right now called Opposites Refract. And you can get in touch with our podcast. We have an Instagram, Schoenberg's Perennials. Good luck spelling that, bad boy. We didn't mention Schoenberg once in this episode. What's up with that?
He would have
scary
loved
Easter
Sarah
egg.
Brand.
You think so? I think he likes intentional
Yeah, he's a bit
choices.
of a stuck up, isn't he?
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, if we told him it was intentional, he would like it.
I think he'd like the spirit of it.
Oh, because he's a punk. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he likes the spirit. And you can email us at schoenbergsperennials@gmail.com if you have any questions, suggestions, things you need to tell us. Go for it. We're here.
Fart jokes. That'd be great.
Oh,
It's in my
well,
inbox.
you can handle the fart joke folder.
We can make a folder of that.
Yeah.
Just send it in. We can we'll read it off next time. If there's a fart joke in the email, we'll read it off next time.
All right, deal.
100%.
Deal. All right. Thank you for listening.
Maybe not next time because this was recorded before we released anything. So
Well, don't tell them that.
why can't they
You're
know
just
that?
like breaking the fourth wall here.
They can break the fourth wall. You don't like breaking? That's the fourth. Oh, the fourth wall. We
I
can't
don't-
break the fourth wall.
Oh, sure.
Does a podcast even have a fourth
I was
wall?
just gonna say I want to get into a philosophy discussion. You know how I feel about that shit.
But what if it doesn't have a fourth wall?
All right, that's it.